I never thought the sound of my own front door locking would be the sound that broke my heart. My name is Claire Bennett. I'm 53 years old, and 3 nights ago, my only child, the girl I raised alone after her father walked out when she was 4, stood behind that door and turned the deadbolt while I stood outside in the rain, holding nothing but my purse and the keys that no longer worked. But if you think this story is just about a lock, you're wrong. This story is about a house I built with my bare hands, a daughter I built with my whole heart, and a secret that neither one of us saw coming. Stay with me, because what happened the next morning changed everything I thought I knew about my own family. Let me back up. I bought this house, a small blue 2-story on Maple Grove Lane, 18 years ago, back when I was still working double shifts at the diner and raising Emily by myself. I remember the day I signed the papers. My hands were shaking so badly the loan officer had to hold the pen steady for me. I remember thinking, this is it. This is the one thing nobody can ever take from us. This is Emily's home. This is where she'll grow up safe. And she did grow up here. I watched her take her first steps in that living room. I watched her ride a bike for the first time in that driveway, training wheels wobbling, her laughter so loud the neighbors used to joke they could set their clocks by it. I sat up all night in that kitchen helping her with algebra homework she swore she'd never use in real life. I stood in the doorway of her bedroom the morning she left for college, crying so hard I could barely see her drive away. Every wall in that house has a memory soaked into it. Every wall except, apparently, the ones that mattered to her anymore. 2 years ago, Emily's marriage fell apart. I won't go into all the details. That's her story to tell, not mine. But what matters is this: she came back home with her son, my grandson Noah, who was barely 3 at the time. She had nowhere else to go, and I didn't even have to think about it. Of course, I said. Of course, come home. This house has always been yours too. I gave up my home office. I turned it back into her old bedroom. I helped her enroll Noah in preschool. I picked him up when she had to work late. I cooked dinner every single night for the 3 of us, the way I used to when she was little, humming the same songs, setting the same table. For a while it felt like we were healing together. It felt like family, but somewhere along the way, and I still can't pinpoint exactly when, something shifted. It started small. She started making decisions about the house without asking me. New paint in the hallway, a different arrangement of furniture in the living room. I told myself, she needs to feel some control over her life right now, let her have this. Then it became bigger. She started inviting people over without telling me. A man named Derek, who I'd never even heard of until I found his jacket hanging on my coat rack. She started talking about renovating the whole downstairs, like it was already decided, like my opinion wasn't required. And then, 3 weeks ago, she asked me the question that I still can't get out of my head. "Mom," she said, not even looking up from her phone, "have you ever thought about maybe getting your own place? Somewhere smaller, just for you?" I laughed. I actually laughed, because I thought she was joking. This was my house. I paid the mortgage for 15 years before it was even paid off. I had the deed with my name on it, sitting in a folder in my closet upstairs. There was no getting my own place. I was already in my own place. But she wasn't joking. And over the following weeks, the hints got less subtle. Comments about how much easier things would be. Comments about how Derek was thinking of moving in, eventually. Comments about how Noah needed more space to grow. As if I was the one taking up space. As if I was the intruder in a home I built brick by brick with money I earned scrubbing dishes and waiting tables until my back gave out. I should have seen it coming. I should have protected myself. But you never think your own child is capable of what happened 3 nights ago. I had gone out to have dinner with my sister, Margaret, something I hadn't done in months because I was always home taking care of Noah. I remember feeling almost guilty leaving, like I was abandoning some post I wasn't allowed to leave. Margaret told me I was being ridiculous, that I deserved one night out, that Emily was a grown woman who could handle her own son for a few hours. I laughed it off and told her she was right. I got home around 10. It was raining, one of those cold October rains that soaks through your coat in seconds. I walked up to the front porch, put my key in the lock, and turned it. Nothing happened. I tried again. Nothing. I checked to make sure I had the right key. Of course I did. I'd used that same key for 18 years. And tried a 3rd time. The lock wouldn't budge. And that's when I noticed the porch light was off, even though I could see the flicker of the television through the living room curtains. Someone was awake, and someone was choosing not to open the door. I knocked. No answer. I knocked harder, calling out Emily's name, then Noah's, my voice cracking somewhere between confusion and the first, cold edge of fear. I pulled out my phone and called her. It rang twice before going to voicemail. I called again, straight to voicemail this time. I stood on my own front porch, in my own coat, soaked to the bone, staring at a door I had walked through 10,000 times, and for the first time in 18 years, it would not let me in. And somewhere behind that door, I could hear her laughing at something on the television, like nothing in the world was wrong at all. I stood there for what felt like an eternity, though when I checked my phone later, it had only been 11 minutes. 11 minutes of knocking, calling, and staring at a door that used to mean safety, and now felt like a wall between me and everything I had ever known. The rain hadn't let up. If anything, it was coming down harder, running in cold rivers down the back of my collar, soaking through my blouse until I could feel it clinging to my skin. My purse was getting heavier by the second, water pooling in the folds of the leather. I remember thinking, absurdly, that I should have brought an umbrella, as if that was the problem. As if an umbrella could have fixed any of this. I tried calling Emily a third time. Straight to voicemail again. I tried calling the house phone. Yes, we still had one. An old habit from years ago that I'd never bothered to cancel. And it rang and rang with no answer, even though I could still hear the television through the window, still hear that faint, maddening sound of laughter drifting out into the wet night air. That's when the fear started to curdle into something else. Something sharper. Anger, maybe, or humiliation. I don't know which one hurt worse. The thought that something might be wrong inside, or the thought that nothing was wrong at all, and this was simply a choice. A decision someone had made, deliberately, to leave me standing in the rain like a stranger. I thought about my grandson. That thought alone nearly broke me. Was Noah okay? Was he asleep, unaware that his grandmother was standing outside in a storm? Or was something happening in there that I needed to see, needed to stop? I banged on the door with the flat of my hand, harder than I meant to, my knuckles stinging from the force of it. Emily? Emily, open the door, it's Mom. My voice cracked on the last word, and I hated how small it sounded, swallowed up by the rain and the wind and the distance of a door that had never once, in 18 years, refused me. Finally, I saw a shadow shift behind the curtain. The porch light flicked on, blinding me for a second after standing in the dark for so long. I heard the click of the deadbolt, the same deadbolt that had refused to turn under my own key just minutes before, and the door opened. Emily stood there in her pajamas, a mug of tea in one hand, looking at me like I was the one who had done something wrong. Mom, what are you doing? It's late. I just stared at her. Water was dripping off my chin, off my hair, forming a small puddle on the welcome mat. The same welcome mat I'd bought on a whim from a garden store 15 years ago because it said, Bennett Family, in cheerful stitched letters. I remembered how proud I'd been of that mat. It felt like a lifetime ago. My key doesn't work, I said, my voice shaking, though I wasn't sure anymore if it was from the cold or something else entirely. I've been standing out here for almost 15 minutes, Emily. I called you 3 times. I called the house phone. What is going on? She blinked at me, and for just a fraction of a second, so brief I almost convinced myself I imagined it, something flickered across her face. Guilt, maybe. Or calculation. It was gone before I could be sure, replaced by an expression of practiced, almost bored confusion. I didn't hear anything, she said, stepping back to let me in, though even that felt grudging, like she was doing me a favor rather than simply letting me into my own home. I had the TV up loud, and my phone was on silent, I guess. I don't know about the key. Maybe it's just old. You should get it looked at. I walked past her into the front hallway, dripping onto the hardwood floor I had refinished myself 2 summers ago, on my hands and knees with sandpaper and stain, because I couldn't afford to hire someone to do it for me. I looked at her, waiting for something more. An apology, an explanation that actually made sense. Anything. Instead, she just sipped her tea and glanced toward the stairs. No's already asleep. You should probably get out of those wet clothes before you catch a cold. That was it. That was the entire conversation. As if I hadn't just spent 15 minutes locked outside my own home in a storm. As if my distress, my fear, my confusion, meant nothing at all to her. I went upstairs in a daze, peeled off my soaked clothes and sat on the edge of my bed for a long time staring at nothing. Something was wrong. I could feel it in my chest, that low, persistent hum of unease that doesn't go away no matter how hard you try to reason with it. I told myself it was probably just the lock. Old hardware, worn tumblers, nothing sinister. I told myself Emily was tired, stressed, maybe even a little thoughtless, but not cruel. Not deliberately cruel, not to me. But then, as I was hanging my wet coat over the shower rod to dry, I noticed something through the crack of my bedroom door. A soft blue light coming from downstairs, the kind a laptop screen throws across a dark room. I heard Emily's voice, low, careful, the particular hush of someone who doesn't want to be overheard. I crept to the top of the stairs, moving as quietly as I could on legs still trembling from the cold, and I caught just 3 words before she noticed the creak of the floorboard beneath my foot and went silent. Before she finds out. And then the light clicked off, and the house went completely, unnervingly still. I didn't sleep that night. Not really. I lay in bed listening to the house settle around me, the way it always did. The creak of the pipes, the hum of the refrigerator 2 floors down, the wind pushing against the old windows I kept meaning to replace. Every sound felt different now. Every sound felt like it was hiding something. Before she finds out. I kept turning those 4 words over and over in my mind, examining them from every angle, the way you'd turn a stone over looking for the crack that might split it wide open. Before who finds out? Before what? My first instinct, the instinct of a mother who has spent 30 years worrying about her child, was to assume Emily was in trouble. Maybe money problems. Maybe something with Derek, someone I still barely knew despite the fact that his jacket had been living on my coat rack for the better part of 2 months. Maybe she was protecting me from something, the way she used to when she was little and would hide a bad report card under her mattress rather than show me. But another part of me, a colder, quieter part that I didn't like listening to, whispered a different possibility. What if the she in that sentence wasn't someone Emily was protecting? What if it was me? What if I was the one who wasn't supposed to find out? By 5 in the morning, I gave up on sleep entirely. I got up, made a pot of coffee in the kitchen I had chosen every tile and cabinet handle for, and sat at the table in the gray, early light, trying to decide what to do. Confront her, wait and see. I am not, by nature, a suspicious person. I have spent my whole life believing the best about people, especially about my daughter, because believing the best about her was the only thing that got me through the hardest years of raising her alone. But 18 years of trust doesn't erase itself overnight, and it also doesn't survive forever on faith alone when something feels this wrong. Around 6, I heard footsteps on the stairs, and my heart jumped into my throat before I even realized who it was. It was just Noah, my grandson, rubbing his eyes and dragging his stuffed rabbit by one ear. He climbed up into the chair beside me without a word, the way he always did, and I poured him a small glass of orange juice, grateful, for just a moment, for the simplicity of a 5-year-old who didn't know anything was wrong. "Grandma," he said, yawning, "why was Mommy on the phone so late?" She woke me up a little. My hand froze around the coffee pot. "What did she say, sweetheart? Do you remember?" He shrugged, the way children do when a question is too big for them to hold on to. "Something about papers. And a man. She said the man was gonna come look at the house." I set the coffee pot down very carefully, because my hands had started to shake and I didn't want to spill scalding coffee onto my grandson. "A man to look at the house. Do you know his name, baby?" Noah shook his head, already losing interest, more focused on the cartoon shapes on his cereal box than on the quiet earthquake happening across the table from him. But he'd given me enough. A man. Papers, the house. I thought about the folder in my closet upstairs, the deed, the mortgage documents, 18 years of paperwork that I kept meticulously organized because that's simply who I am. I excused myself from the table, telling Noah I'd be right back, and I climbed the stairs 2 at a time, my heart hammering against my ribs in a way it hadn't in years. The folder was still there, tucked exactly where I'd left it, and for one brief, relieved second, I let myself believe I'd imagined the entire thing. Then I opened it, everything was there. Everything except the deed. I went through the folder twice, 3 times, pulling out old insurance statements and tax records and photographs of the house from the day I bought it. But the deed, the original deed with my name printed clearly at the top, was gone. In its place was a single sticky note, and on it, in Emily's unmistakable handwriting, were 3 words that made the floor feel like it was tilting beneath me. Needed for appraisal. An appraisal. Someone was appraising my house. Someone was preparing to sell it, or refinance it, or transfer it, and they needed the deed to do it, which meant someone had gone into my closet, into my private files, and taken it without asking me. My own daughter had gone through my things like a thief in her own mother's house. I sat down hard on the edge of my bed, the sticky note trembling between my fingers, and I tried to breathe through the wave of nausea rising in my chest. I thought about every hint she'd dropped over the past few weeks, the comments about a smaller place, the talk of Derek moving in, the offhand remarks about renovating, the whole downstairs, as though it were already settled. I had brushed all of it off as the careless chatter of a stressed single mother trying to rebuild her life. Now I wondered if I had been watching, in slow motion, the quiet dismantling of my own home, piece by piece, decision by decision, all without my knowledge or my consent. I heard Emily's bedroom door open down the hall, the soft pad of her footsteps heading toward the bathroom, completely unaware that I now knew. I slipped the sticky note into my robe pocket, closed the folder, and sat very still, staring at the wall, trying to decide whether to confront her right then or wait. Wait and watch, and see exactly how far she was willing to let this go before she thought I'd ever find out. I chose to wait, and that decision, more than anything else, is what led to the morning that changed everything. I didn't confront Emily that day. I told myself I was being strategic, gathering more information before I said anything, but the truth is simpler than that. I was scared. Scared of what I'd hear if I finally asked her directly. Scared that the daughter I raised alone, the one I had sacrificed everything for, might actually say the words out loud and make them real. So instead, I watched. I watched the way she took calls in the backyard instead of the kitchen. I watched the way she angled her laptop screen away from me at the table. I watched Derek's visits become longer, more comfortable, more like a man settling into a house, rather than a guest passing through it. And every night, I lay awake turning that sticky note over in my mind. Needed for appraisal. 3 days after I found it, I finally understood everything. It was a Thursday morning, and I had just come downstairs to make coffee when I heard a car pull into the driveway. Through the kitchen window, I watched a man in a gray suit step out, carrying a clipboard and a tape measure, glancing up at the house with the practiced, appraising eye of someone whose entire job was putting a number on things other people loved. Behind him, Emily got out of her own car, phone against her ear, laughing at something, completely unaware that I was standing at the window watching her walk up to my front porch, like she already owned every board and brick of it. I opened the door before she could use her key. Mom. Her smile faltered instantly. This is Greg. He's just doing a quick appraisal, it's not a big deal. I was going to tell you. Tell me what exactly? My voice came out steadier than I expected, steadier than I felt. That you took the deed to my house out of my closet without asking me. That you've been planning to sell my home behind my back. Her face went through several expressions in quick succession. Shock, then something like shame, then, infuriatingly, defensiveness. It's not like that. Derek and I have been talking, and honestly, Mom, this house is too big for you alone, and if we sold it, you'd actually walk away with a good amount of money, enough to get somewhere smaller, somewhere easier to manage, and Noah and I could. No, and you could what? Live here with Derek, in my house. Which you would sell out from under me to do it. I felt something break loose in my chest, something that had been holding steady for 18 years finally giving way. Emily, I built a life for you in this house when I had nothing else to give you. I worked myself half to death for it, and you decided, without a single conversation, to erase me from it. She started to cry, and for one brief, aching moment, the old instinct kicked in, the instinct to comfort her, to smooth things over, to make her pain smaller, because that's what I had always done. But I didn't move toward her. For the first time in her entire life, I let her cry without rushing to fix it. I was going to tell you, she said again, quieter now. I just didn't know how. Derek said it would be easier if we just handled the paperwork first, and then presented you with an actual plan instead of just an idea. And she stopped, wiping her face with the back of her hand. I know how that sounds. I know it was wrong. The appraiser, to his credit, had quietly slipped back to his car the moment the shouting started, clearly deciding this was not the morning to measure square footage. I want to tell you that I forgave her instantly, that we hugged it out on the porch, and everything went back to the way it was. But that's not the truth, and I promised myself, standing there in the cold morning air with my daughter crying in front of me, that I was done pretending things were fine when they weren't. Real love, I've learned, sometimes means telling the truth even when it costs you comfort. I told Emily that she and Noah were welcome in my home for as long as she needed, but that it would remain my home, with my name on the deed, and my say in what happened to it. I told her that if she and Derek wanted a life together, they were welcome to build one, but not by quietly dismantling the one I had already built with my own hands. I told her that trust, once broken, doesn't come back just because someone finally admits what they did. It comes back slowly, if at all, through actions, not apologies. The next morning, the morning that truly changed everything, I woke up and, for the first time in weeks, the house felt like mine again. Emily had left a note on the kitchen table, not a sticky note this time, but a full page, admitting everything she'd been too ashamed to say out loud. How Derek had pushed the idea, how she'd let her own insecurity about starting over convince her it was the right thing to do, how sorry she was for making me feel like a stranger in my own home. I called a locksmith that same day and had every lock in the house changed. Not out of spite, but because I finally understood that protecting what I built wasn't cruelty. It was self-respect. I put the deed in a safety deposit box at the bank, somewhere no one could quietly slip it out of a folder ever again. Emily and I are still healing. Some mornings are easier than others. But we talk now, really talk, in a way we hadn't in years. Derek is gone, at least for now, and Noah still climbs up onto the chair beside me every morning for his orange juice, blissfully unaware of how close he came to growing up in a house his grandmother no longer had a key to. I learned something that week that I'll carry with me for the rest of my life. Love without honesty isn't love at all. It's just a quieter kind of theft. And sometimes, the person who locks you out isn't trying to hurt you. They're just too afraid to look you in the eye and tell you the truth. I just wish she had trusted me enough to try. People always ask me why I didn't just kick her out that morning, why I didn't scream, pack her bags myself, and change my mind about letting her stay. I understand the question. If I heard this story from someone else, I might ask the same thing. But there's something you learn after 3 years of living, something you learn especially after raising a child alone with nothing but 2 jobs and a stubborn will to give her a better life than the one you had. Love and boundaries are not opposites. You can hold both at the same time. You can love someone with your whole heart and still tell them, clearly and firmly, that what they did was wrong. So instead of throwing her out, I did something harder. I built a new foundation, brick by brick, the same way I built the house itself all those years ago. The weeks that followed weren't easy. Emily and I fell into a strange, careful rhythm, polite at the dinner table, quiet in the hallways, both of us aware of the invisible line that now ran through the middle of our relationship. I caught her watching me sometimes with an expression I couldn't quite name. Not resentment, exactly. Something closer to fear. Fear that she had broken something between us that couldn't be repaired. And if I'm honest, there were nights I wondered the same thing myself. But then, about a month after the appraiser's visit, something shifted. I came home from the grocery store to find Emily sitting at the kitchen table, with a legal pad covered in her handwriting, numbers crossed out and rewritten in the margins. When I set the bags down, she looked up at me, nervous in a way I hadn't seen since she was a teenager waiting to tell me she'd dented my car. I talked to a counselor, she said. About Derek, about all of it, about why I thought hiding things from you was easier than just being honest. She slid the legal pad toward me. This is a plan. A real one. For me to save up and get my own place with Noah, on my own timeline, without asking you to sacrifice anything else. I don't want to take your home from you, Mom. I never should have let it get that far in the first place. I sat down across from her, and for a long moment, neither of us said anything. I thought about the folder in the safety deposit box, the deed with my name at the top, the locks I'd changed with hands that were still, even now, capable of shaking when I thought about that night in the rain. And I thought about the little girl who used to fall asleep in that same kitchen with her homework spread out in front of her, the one who used to believe her mother could fix anything. I forgive you, I told her, and I meant it, but I also told her something else, something I needed her to understand as clearly as she understood the numbers on that legal pad. Forgiveness doesn't erase what happened. It just means I'm choosing to build something new instead of staying stuck in what broke. That's gonna take time, Emily, real time. Not because I don't love you, but because I do. She nodded, tears slipping down her face again, but different this time. Not the tears of someone caught, but the tears of someone finally, truly seen. 6 months have passed since that morning on the porch. Emily and Noah still live with me, but everything is different now. She pays a portion of the bills, something she insisted on herself, and she asks before she changes so much as a curtain in the living room. Derek is no longer part of the picture. Whatever he saw in Emily, it apparently didn't include patience for boundaries, honesty, or the slow, humbling work of rebuilding trust with the people you've hurt. I can't say I miss him. Some evenings, Emily and I sit on the porch together, in the same spot where I once stood locked outside in the rain, and we talk about the future. Real conversations now, not sideways hints or half-finished plans hidden behind laptop screens. She's saving for her own place slowly but honestly, and I've told her more than once that there's no rush. This house has room for both of us for as long as we need it to. As for the deed, it stays in that safety deposit box now, not because I don't trust my daughter anymore, but because I've learned that protecting what you love and trusting the people in your life are two separate things, and you're allowed to do both without apologizing for either. Looking back, I think about that night constantly. Standing in the rain, keys that no longer fit, my own daughter's laughter drifting through a window I couldn't get past. At the time, it felt like the worst night of my life. Now I understand it was actually the beginning of something better, a relationship built not on quiet assumptions and half-truths, but on honesty, however painful it was to arrive at. If there's one thing I want anyone listening to this story to take with them, it's this: if someone you love starts making decisions about your life without you, don't wait as long as I did to ask why. And if you're the one who's tempted to make those decisions in silence, out of fear or shame, or the mistaken belief that it will be easier that way, please, don't. The people who love you can survive hard truths. What they can't survive, not without real damage, is discovering you never trusted them enough to tell those truths at all. My daughter locked me out of my own home one rainy October night. But the next morning, in the quiet after the storm, we finally found our way back to being honest with each other again. And that, more than any house, any deed, any four walls, that is the thing I was always really trying to protect.